They literally had dick, cum, and pussy on slides and read off them. What was the please stop school presentation that you witnessed? Someone in my class did a book report on the dictionary. The teacher was pissed, all of us students thought it was hilarious. Never heard the end of the presentation. In college, someone was doing a presentation on Nelson Mandela and kept referring to Africans as African Americans. During our school assemblies we often had student performers, which were usually musically inclined individuals or theater kids doing a scene/monologue. One kid decided to do a stand-up comedy routine about a girl giving him a blowjob. So awkward, and the principal had to interrupt him. It was my sophomore year English class. This kid who was reading his essay in front of the class and started to stumble over some of the words. The teacher recognized the words and found the essay the kid plagiarized and started helping him read it. The kid didn't understand what was happening and just thanked the teacher and kept reading. I went to school for computer security. In an introduction to the computer security course, we had to do a project on social engineering. A student decided that for his project he was going to find a way to gain access to a chosen website. He found a small local business website. Identified that the domain was registered to an email address from a local ISP. I called the ISP to reset the password. They asked him for his last four of his SSN, so he hung up. He found the phone number of the business, so called them, and pretended to be from the ISP offering 3 months free if the person did a 5-question survey. They accepted and answered some BS questions, then he asked for the last four of the guy's SSN, which they gave no problem. He then called the ISP with the last four, got them to reset the password of the email account. He then logged into the email and used it to get the domain registrar to send a password reset to the email, which he used to reset the password of the domain account, and deleted the email. He recorded all phone calls and screenshotted the whole process. As he presented all these, we kept expecting him to say but that would be illegal, so I didn't do X, but he went all the way. The professor finally stopped him after he said he logged into the domain registrar and told him to destroy everything and never speak of it again. I think the professor was a bit nicer than he could have been. Potentially to the point of an accomplice, telling him to destroy evidence. In history class, we all had to do a presentation about some sort of injustice in the world. One kid chose a prison camp for his topic. All his PowerPoint slides were photos of men being stripped, chained, whipped, sodomized, and forced to give blowjobs. In speech 101 in college we had to pick a children's book and voice act each character. That was it. That was the entire assignment. Well, one student decided to take it to the next level. He chose a Berenstain Bear book and decided to not only do voice acting for every single one of the characters but also act it out. It was physically uncomfortable to watch this guy scramble around the room and pretend to be bears and other animals. It was not well done. It was awful. The one where my school got ripped off by paying a guy who claimed to be on SpongeBob to come talk to us about drugs. He did look kind of like Tom Kenny, I guess. Psychology class. Our final was to research and do a presentation on a mental illness. One group chose necrophilia. Started with the first slide saying let's crack open a cold one. For the 8th grade talent show, 2 girls sang the Mr. Bladell song. Mr. Bladell was a good-looking, recently college-graduated teacher, that basically was about how cute they thought he was. Even then, it was incredibly uncomfortable and I remember looking at the teacher's face and he didn't seem very amused. I've told this on Reddit a few times but it's truly unforgettable. The smart kid in the class was giving a deeply sourced PowerPoint presentation on religion in Europe. He opens up his files, proceeds to click on his project named Enger. He says clearly I wasn't really paying any attention when I named my file. He gives the presentation. He stutters and sweats bullets while we watch in utter disbelief. The word is sitting there on the top of the file heading the whole time. This was during a study abroad semester while attending a cultural communication class. He had to write on his own shit after that. It's me. I did this. I cringe about it to this day, nearly 20 years later. I was 16 and in high school. My high school was going to do a spring talent show. I wanted to be in the talent show and show off my talents. The problem was, my actual talents are not ones that I could show off at a talent show. So I decided to try singing. I have never sung in my life. I have never had voice lessons. I was in my prime weeb stage and chose an anime song to sing. I didn't know any actual Japanese, I had just memorized the lyrics from hearing the song so many times. Luckily I didn't make it past auditions, but several people saw an overweight girl in a Sailor Moon shirt try to sing Butterfly despite having never done any singing or voice training ever in her life. Nearly 20 years later, and remembering it keeps me awake at night. When I was in high school, a girl from an absurdly wealthy family gave a presentation on why the rich are just as oppressed as anyone. This was in a normal public school in Kentucky where about 90% of the students were middle class at best. You could feel the eyes rolling in that room. We were supposed to have Arnold Schwarzenegger come to our school sometime around 1999 or 2000, the principal was hyping it up for weeks, then about 4 days before his arrival it was announced on Friday that he wasn't coming. Fast forward to Monday during morning announcements it's announced he's changed his mind and is coming to our school tomorrow as planned. Come Tuesday morning everyone is excited, we're all amped to meet the Terminator, a handful of parents even came with VHS copies of his movies, posters, etc. We're all going to our gym/auditorium, taking our seats. Principal takes the stage, takes the moment to make some announcements, award honor roll, perfect attendance, etc. Finally, she starts hyping up around Schwarzenegger, everyone is excited and on edge, when she basically says here's Arnie and. It's the vice principal in a leather jacket holding a shotgun, not a toy one either, and spends 30 to 40 minutes trying to hype us up for FCAT all the while doing the absolute worst impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger I've ever heard. Once we realized Arnold wasn't there people start shouting, screaming at the principals for lying to us, along with some of the parents who came to this. I do hope someone has footage of this meltdown of a bunch of K5 kids shouting and screaming at the principals because Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't come to our school. Because I clearly remember 2 to 3 people having camcorders. My sophomore year we had to make a presentation about any person that made an impact on the world that was inspirational. Someone chose Hitler. When I was a 9th grade student, we had to present the poems we made in English class. Most people wrote about embracing their culture, loving their friends, etc. Then there was that one kid who recited a lifestyle poem which compared fat people to beached whales and said that people who don't work out will die before they're 20. This was in fucking college. Our bio finals were to present on any topic that was related to biology. A group was presenting on types of protection for sex. Not once did they refer to anybody parts or fluids by their scientific names. So, yes, they literally had dick, cum, and pussy on slides and read off them. Everyone kept glancing over at our professor, who had this look like he was just constantly cleaning his glasses because he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. They got Kentucky fucked on grading. This was a Spanish class in college, and I think the assignment was something like talk about your best friend or some such, just kind of a softball assignment so you could practice using the vocabulary. And one classmate's friend was evidently a friend with benefits. Not at school. But when I was in high school my church youth group went to this church camp. For those uninitiated, Thursday nights are normally the really emotional nights. Well, this camp was different. Thursday night the guy that started the camp comes on stage and begins giving a bunch of middle school and high school boys and girls the sex talk. All I remember from that night was the quote, "Just because there's a hole there doesn't mean you have to stick something in it." An anti-bullying campaign. They spent most of the presentation explaining different types and ways to bully/harass people. Bullying increased in school and everything got 10 times worse now that the students were more educated on the subject. Compared to some other stories in here this is minor, but it was a group project for one of my literature classes. There were 5 people in this group. According to the rubric for this assignment, everyone was supposed to have equal speaking parts. One of the members of this group would just not stop talking. Half of their presentation was just her talking, and she went on about each of her slides for like 5 minutes. The rest of her group members had like 1 or 2 slides each, and she had 5 or 6. She would also interject into the other group members' parts to add her opinions. The look on my professor's face screamed just shut up already. Every time she talked. This was my presentation, and it was about the science behind how Mountain Dew can dissolve a mouse. This was in 4th grade. Needless to say, I got some parent complaints. Not a literal presentation really, but we had an assembly in high school where the students that helped plan homecoming would announce the nominations for homecoming court. It always had a cute little theme and like a short skit involved. Well, at one point the audio they were using as the cue for the skit failed. They just kind of paused for technical difficulties, but this one girl from the planning committee started singing a random Disney song a cappella while improvising a dance to go along with it, I guess as a distraction from them trying to fix the audio. She kept trying to get people to join in with her, but nobody did, and she eventually just kind of trailed off mid-song and started pouting that nobody would sing with her. Then once they got the audio fixed for the skit, she pouted and snapped the way through the rest of her lines, which made everything even more uncomfortable. The other famous one was when a girl in our class running for student government referenced a hashtag that she was trying to make popular during her campaign speech to the whole school. The hashtag was something catchy about her having a big ass. There was a genuine collective yikes from the crowd when she said it. I don't think she got elected. We were to make a film retelling the story of Hamlet. It was supposed to be 5 minutes. Being the creative nutcases we were, we made a 22-minute film complete with a commercial break which made fun of prior books we had to read. Ophelia was a Jersey Shore whore who refused to take her Prozac, Polonius was a perverted Greek philosopher, and Hamlet was a depressed emo. Sword fights were video game based, with Mortal Kombat themes. We presented it to the class and were cut off after 5 minutes. During nursing school, a guy decided to use My Little Pony figures as props to a seminar room of about 100 people. He told the class that he would refer to himself as his pony name for the duration. Don't remember what it was. Also, not that this is relevant, but he wore a black leather trench coat and it was pretty hot in the room, yet he never took it off. Cringe. A teacher asked us to compare the cells in our body to anything we can think of. Obviously, some students compared the parts of the human cell to schools, jails, libraries, normal things, right? Well, this one student that sits next to me had a different idea. These were group projects, keep in mind. This girl managed to strong-arm her group to compare the human cell to the infamous webcomic Homestuck. She did this successfully. Not only did I feel dirty, but her group felt worse for having their names on it. We had this senior talent show that a few male students could sign up for, no idea why it was only guys, or how the few people even got nominated for it, and they all had to do their own act. Some sang, some danced, some put on a funny skit, possibilities were endless. Well, each year someone who never got told they weren't good at singing would end up on stage. One time this guy did the evolution of boy band songs and it was just below average singing for, no joke, 15 minutes straight. Bonus skit that I'm glad didn't stop because it was hilarious. One guy did a wrestling skit with different movie characters and my friend was the announcer. When Indiana Jones got into the ring, my friend announced it's the BDSM bad boy himself, and somehow that slipped by all the school staff members and made it into the DVDs the school sold. Another friend of mine sang Disney princess songs while wearing a Sonic hat and got second place, and at least 3 girls gave him their number. Environmental science. For our final project in the class, we were allowed to talk about. Dude decides to do his project on global cooling. Buddy was up there for 7 minutes explaining to the class how the Earth has been getting colder and colder, and how it's eventually going to cause problems to other species. The teacher was really passionate about this class and you could see her squirming in her seat the whole way through the presentation. The whole thing was a big WTF. His sources were online forums. Was in a video/film making class in high school. One group of guys did a parody of those Gatorade commercials where the athlete's sweat is colored like Gatorade, but it was a sweaty guy jerking off. Apparently, there was a Gatorade cum shot, but the teacher just turned that shit off immediately before it got that far. This one happened a few months ago only actually. We were in law and entrepreneurship class and we had to make a presentation about a made-up company we would invent, and the 2 class clowns made their presentation about a drink and their slogan was if she's drunk she can't say no, and neither of them wanted to read it. They just wanted to skip over it, but the teacher made them read it and asked them to go back to their places. I had never seen someone so calm and angry at the same time. When the class started hesitatingly clapping, the professor said, "Stop, this isn't worth clapping for." The next week, the 2 of them went around all the classes during the morning reading time to present a video about consent. Thank you for watching Reddit Space. Please subscribe if you love these Reddit stories.